There is no going back to how things used to be. And I know that feels very uncomfortable to hear. I want to say this plainly because moments like this deserve honesty. I'm not saying this to scare you, I promise. I am saying this to ground you. Because we can do this. You can do this. We are all here because the people before us made it through things that were far more brutal, far more uncertain, and far less fair than what we're facing right now. Every single one of us exists because our ancestors survived famine, war, displacement, repression, plague, and still found ways to keep going. That's just how lineage works. You inherited your resilience. Tap into that. But here is why I am saying this. History tells us something very consistently. When governments go as far as ours has gone, when systems change this deeply, societies don't rewind. They move forward into something different. And that in-between liminal space, the part where the old rules stop working but the new ones aren't clear yet, feels very uncomfortable and unsettling. It always is. But it's also where some of the most important shifts in human history have come from. We are, in many ways, in a kind of peasant revolt moment, a moment where people are pushed far enough that the old rules stop making sense and unchecked power stops being acceptable. And what came out of moments like that weren't perfect systems. They were ideas, demands, lines drawn in the sand. Things like the Magna Carta, which was deeply flawed and incomplete, but which introduced a radical idea for its time. That power has limits and rules are not above the people they govern. Or later, our Constitution that tried imperfectly to turn those ideas into structures, accountability, representation, rights that couldn't just be taken away on a whim. None of those moments came from comfort, and none of them came from people having everything figured out. And honestly, the Constitution as we know it is not a perfect document. That's how we ended up here. But these ideas came from people knowing what they could no longer accept at the time and what they were willing to imagine. They came from people knowing what they could no longer accept and being willing to imagine something more than just what they were currently living under. That's how change has always happened. Not because the future was clear, but because the present had become unbearable and people refused to stay there. The people who lived through those earlier moments didn't know how their stories would end either. They didn't have certainty, and I know that feels unsettling and it sucks right now. What they did have was each other. And the willingness to imagine that something more just could exist on the other side of what they were currently enduring. This isn't about having answers right now. It's about giving ourselves permission to stop clinging to the idea that the past is coming back, that we can go back to normal. What we need to do is start sitting together with the reality that forward is the only direction available. And forward doesn't have to mean hopeless. It just means it's unfinished. I'm saying all of this because I want to give you a little bit of a pep talk. We can get through this moment. Humans have always found ways through moments like this when the old systems failed them. You are not alone in this. And history isn't a threat hanging over us. It's proof that people like us have endured, adapted, and built something new before, even when they had no idea what it would look like at the start. I'm going to keep unpacking this because it's bigger than one video and it deserves time. This will be a multi-part series. I don't know how long because I can't fit all of my thoughts in 3 minutes or less. So tell me, if you could pick one thing to change moving forward, where would you focus? If you want to keep thinking this through together, follow or bookmark this so you don't miss what's coming next.